Hi, everyone, and welcome to Studio Jake. I, of course, am your host, Jacob Airy. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to talk about a couple of different things, but to kick it off, just be sure to subscribe to this channel, like this video, ring the little bell because YouTube is doing this weird thing with your subscription feed where they're curating it so you may not get everything that you watch in chronological order anymore. So ring that little bell, that way you get notifications whenever I post a new video or do a live stream. So with that said, welcome to Studio Jake. I wanted to talk about a couple of things, but first off, I wanted to say to all the veterans of D-Day, thank you so much. I know that this Sunday is in fact the 75th anniversary of when the Allied forces stormed the beaches of Normandy to defeat the Nazi regime that was infecting Germany and spreading across Europe. So all of you who were a part of it, whether you be from here in the United States, from Britain, or somewhere else in Europe or around the world, thank you for what you did. You really honored the world, not just your own countries, but you honored the world in saving us from Nazism and socialism and communism. Thank you so much. You guys are awesome. Now, we're going to talk about a couple of other topics. I want to talk about Vox trying to silence Steven Crowder. I want to talk about Robert Pattinson being casted as Batman, and I want to talk about toxic fandom. So toxic fandom, which this will kind of lead into Robert Pattinson's discussion, is a new buzzword that's kind of been going around for people who are saying, you can't not like The Last Jedi, you're a sexist and a racist and a bigot and Islamophobe and everything in between. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about Vox trying to silence Steven Crowder. So for those of you unfamiliar, Steven Crowder is the host of Louder with Crowder on the Blaze TV. He also has his own platform called Mud Club. And every Thursday night, he does a free stream on YouTube, and he is in a constant battle with YouTube over them censoring his videos and demonetizing them and pretty much everything in between. And one of the interesting things that he does is when Vox does one of their ridiculous videos, they did a video recently about how, get this, conservatives control the media. It's like, okay, conservatives have Fox News, a little bit in podcasting, and they have talk radio. What does the left have? They have Vox. They have CNN, MSNBC, Bloomberg, AP, everything in between, pretty much the New York Times. They control all of that, including the entertainment industry. So Vox tried to say, no, that's not true. Well, Crowder has done a lot of rebuttals against Vox. And their host, who goes by the name of Gay Wonk on Twitter, who hosts a lot of these videos, and Crowder kind of like pokes fun at him, calls him names, and kind of makes fun of his lisp. He has a little bit of a lisp. And so Crowder is a late night comedian, and he is way funnier than Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, certainly Stephen Colbert, definitely Trevor Noah and Samantha Bee. Those two can't even tell a good joke. And so he picks on him because in Steven Crowder's mind, he's a comedian, which that's what comedians do. They poke fun at people. The other late night hosts do this all the time. So this guy, Gay Wonk, he goes on this Twitter whine fest where he's like, oh, my feelings, oh, I feel threatened. Oh, no. It's so pathetic. And so he called on YouTube to investigate Crowder's channel, and YouTube responded to this whine fest, which is hilarious. YouTube always says they're for the open exchange of ideas, but now they're doing all these new things that that block creators. That's why a lot of conservatives and heck, even Christians who don't even get into politics, they're going to alternatives like BitChute because YouTube is just clamping down so much on the content. So Crowder gave a response and just spoke out, this is what the left does. The left does not control the media, the left is wrong about conservatives controlling the media. The left controls the media, and nothing is more prevalent than when Vox calls on YouTube to censor someone like Steven Crowder. I mean, it's coming. I mean, there's a lot of conservatives who are like, oh, let's just be mamby-pamby and hold hands and sing kumbaya, and they'll love us. And, you know, people like the Bill Cristols of the world and what's his name? But they, anyway, they're not important. Basically, the entire editorial staff of Bulwark Online, they want conservatives to play nice. And they don't seem to realize that conservatives, we're in a culture war right now. And it's not a war with fisticuffs and weapons and guns and all that, but it is a war of ideas. And the left has a monopoly on who controls what. Because right now, most people get their news from social media, from places like YouTube. My boss, Ben Shapiro, he has a YouTube channel, The Daily Wire, the Blaze TV, and YouTube is clamping down on these people. And it's time to fight back. It's time to stand up and say, we're not going to take this anymore. PragerU is in this ongoing lawsuit against YouTube. We've seen them slash, and not just YouTube, but Twitter and Facebook. They've come after people like Lauren Chen, who you might know as the roaming millennial. They've gone after her, who, granted, she has interviewed controversial people, but so what? Larry King has interviewed controversial people. What difference does it make who she interviews? Interviewing a person and talking about their ideas is not the same as endorsing them. Now, if Lauren Chen, which I know she hasn't because I've watched most of these interviews, if she had on, what's his name, Richard Spencer, and said, hey, I agree with you. But no, she had on Richard Spencer and exposed him as the radical racist that he really is. And that is something to be applauded, because she forced him to talk about, she didn't force him. She invited him on to talk of his ideas, and they were exposed. And what Lauren does, what Ben Shapiro does with the Sunday Special, what Glenn Beck does with the Glenn Beck podcast, what Dave Rubin does with the Rubin Report, it's an open exchange of ideas. And that's how social media and the news media and the entertainment industry should be. And so I just want to say, Vox, you're doing the wrong thing. It's stupid, it's cowardly, and it makes you look pathetic. And so get your guy in line and denounce this attempt at censorship. So that's what I wanted to say about that. I think that it's disgusting how conservatives, even my Little Nothing channel, I used to do trailer reactions. And Warner Brothers actually came after me because I did a trailer reaction to Wonder Woman. And I don't know why they didn't like it. I praised the trailer. I said I couldn't wait. And I give the movie a good review on my blog. So I don't know why they were mad. And I actually won the fair use fight. But then they came after me because there was music in the trailer. And I had to stop doing them because I realized, because YouTube allows them to use their discretion. And I think that that's a sad thing. I think that YouTube should let the content creator be able to appeal appropriately. Because in Crowder's case, he actually goes through the laws and the legalities of everything. He has his lawyer, who he refers to as his half Asian lawyer, Bill Richmond, and he actually goes through the legal avenues in order to expose you to how they're not actually following the letter of the law with these censorship plays. And that shouldn't just disserve conservatives, that should conserve liberals. And it has people like Dave Rubin, Tim Pool, Joe Rogan, although I think Joe Rogan kind of identifies more as a libertarian. But my point is, at least some of these liberals have stood up for it and said, hey, this isn't cool. We really shouldn't censorship. And Dave Rubin, because Dave Rubin has spoken out against this, he's actually got hit by the left over this, even though he said, hey, we should have an open exchange of ideas. And I think that's just absolutely ridiculous. And I think that Vox attempting to censor Crowder is nothing short of them being cowards, quite frankly. If they can't handle the heat, they need to get out of the kitchen. So now we're going to talk about this. Now, I actually have had people ask me about this on Twitter. I've had people ask me about it in person. What do I think of Robert Pattinson being Batman? Now, again, The Hollywood Reporter and other entertainment industry magazines has recorded that he basically has the part for the upcoming Matt Reeves film, The Batman. Now, I like Matt Reeves films. I don't think that they're, you know, Citizen Kane or whatever, but I think they're good. I think they're well made. He's an excellent director, and so I'm looking forward to him being Batman. So again, Warner Brothers has not announced Robert Pattinson as of the recording of this as having the role, but just insiders are saying he basically has it. They're reaching a deal with him. So what does this mean? How do I feel about Robert Pattinson being the Batman? And I'm going to be totally honest with you. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. A lot of us were hesitant about Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger playing the Joker, I mean, in Christopher Nolan's masterpiece, The Dark Knight. Heath Ledger was known for 10 Things I Hate About You, which is a really not great rom-com. And so when I heard he was going to be the Joker, me and a lot of other fans were aghast, but he did a good job. So Robert Pattinson is getting a lot of flack from like hardcore Batman fans who are saying, hey, we don't like this guy. He's known as Edward Cullen in Twilight. You know, that fantasy series that teaches girls that if you're in an abusive relationship, it's okay because he's a sparkly vampire. He's known for that. Now, just because he's known for that doesn't make it doesn't mean he's a bad actor. I've only seen the first one. Everyone who is objective has told me that all of the movies are just hot garbage, and the first one was hot garbage. I don't know how anyone could take that movie seriously. It is awful, bad acting all the way around. So all that to say, Robert Pattinson, he has been in other films. I've seen him in 1 or 2 indie films, and he's not blown me away amazing like, say, Joaquin Phoenix or Sandra Bullock or Robert Downey Jr. or Samuel L. Jackson. But he's a decent actor. I think he can pull off a good part. Now, Batman is a very important part. And obviously, Batman is a part of the American myth. I have said this for some time, and I'm going to talk about this more, but comic books are the American myth. They're not the only one. Obviously, we have the West, we have the frontier, we have the gold rush, and all this in between. But comic books are the American myth. They're part of that. And I just think that Batman should be played by a person who is really good. And that was the problem with Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck is kind of how should I put this? Ben Affleck is incredibly overrated. He's not really that good of an actor. It's just he chooses films really well, and so he'll get really good parts, and he'll do decent. And I mean, I liked him in Argo. He was fine. I liked him in Good Will Hunting. I didn't like Matt Damon in that, but he was fine in Good Will Hunting. But I've seen him in some pretty terrible films where he's just a plain bad actor. He was good in Triple Frontier. I'll give him that. More recent film. But, and same with George Clooney. George Clooney is an underwear model. He does not even need to be in films. I don't know why. I've seen a bunch of movies with him, and it's rolling the dice, coming up Snake Eyes more and more. Now, Robert Pattinson, he is going to be more like a Val Kilmer. Now, at the time, when Val Kilmer made Batman Forever, and a lot of people disagree with me about this, and that's fine, that's their prerogative. That was before the Val Kilmer of the 2000s, which, you know, he's not very good anymore. But at the time, Val Kilmer was at the height of his popularity. He was actually the ideal person to take on a role of the Batman. The problem is he got a bad director, Joel Schumacher. Now, Robert Pattinson is kind of an unknown because since the Twilight films, he hasn't really been in anything big. He's mainly been in B movies or indie films. And so I'm going to give him a chance. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to see how it goes. Now, my expectations are incredibly low, but I think that this could be a possibility. Now, that being said, the casting is very clear that Warner Brothers has lost touch with the DC Comics fan base, and this has been a problem for some time. DC Comics has forgotten all about their fan base. I mean, we saw this with Heroes in Crisis, Tom King's miniseries, how he made Wally West, in which I talked about this in a previous episode. I don't know why DC Comics hates Wally West. They brought him back only to have him kill superheroes and also die after he does that. And it was clearly a big FU to the fans. Like, we know better, we're DC Comics. And it's true that the comic book companies have been doing these characters for a while, but the problem is they're hiring a bunch of writers who aren't very good because they're alienating all their good ones. And I think that, we saw that DC Comics kerfuffle with Ethan Van Sciver. I mean, it's been crazy. We've seen how Marvel Comics has treated some of their creators as well. It's just kicked them to the curb, even though they're incredibly talented writers and artists. And so now they're hiring all these diversity hires or people who support the SJW agenda, and they're not good. They're just awful. They're bad. And I think that this is another example of this. Now, again, I'm willing to give Robert Pattinson the benefit of the doubt. Twilight was a terrible film, but Warner Brothers thinks, okay, Twilight is about vampires. Vampires are bats. Batman is about a guy who dresses up like a bat, kind of like a vampire. So maybe we could bring these two together. No, that's not how it works, Warner Brothers. Now, someone told me on Twitter, shouldn't they cast based on talent rather than what the fans want? Sure, but get talent. Like I said, Robert Pattinson, I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, but I'm going to say this over and over again so people don't get angry, but there were plenty of really good actors that the fans reacted positively to that Warner Brothers could have casted. So, for instance, a couple of months ago, a rumor got out that Ryan Gosling was going to be cast as Batman, and the fans went up in an uproar. And so much so that even Ryan Gosling backed off and said, hey, I don't know what they're talking about. Now, but however, John Hamm, Armie Hammer, and Scott Adkins, the three of them, and Nicholas Hoult, were all considered for the role as well, and the fans reacted positively to all four of those actors. Now, I can say that I have seen John Hamm act. Well, I don't think. Well, to me, he's not pretty boy enough to be Bruce Wayne. I think he could still pull it off. Out of those three, Armie Hammer was probably my favorite. In fact, just before Man of Steel came to light, there was going to be a movie called Justice League Mortals. It was going to be a standalone film that was supposed to come out right after The Dark Knight Rises. It wasn't going to be connected to the Dark Knight trilogy at all, but Armie Hammer was up for Batman. The fans reacted positively to that. And Scott Adkins, he would probably be my least out of those three, but I still think he could pull it off. Nicholas Hoult, my problem with him is he's kind of more of a TV actor, so I'm not really sure, but I think he would have been good. The fans reacted positively to all four of those. I don't know why they didn't cast them. So that kind of negates that argument. But whenever now I'm not saying sometimes you have to take risks when you're a writer. You have to not always do fan service, and we saw that with Avengers Endgame. While they had a lot of fan service in there, they took risks. They did things that were unexpected, and it turned out really good. The risk was completely worth it. Same with The Dark Knight. Christopher Nolan took risks with the character, but he remained true to the character. The problem with Batman versus Superman was Zack Snyder thinks he knows better. He's never read a comic book in his life. He doesn't know anything about Batman, about the legend of it, about the mythology of Batman. And so he read All-Star Batman and Robin and The Dark Knight Returns and said, okay, I got this. And the next thing you know, you have Batman mowing down people with machine guns, which is, murder bats. So, all that to say, I really think that this is just an endemic of how the industry has lost touch with its fans. They're going by a few fans who don't buy comic books anyway. They go and see the movies and they read Ironheart and they think that they know everything. But that's just not the case. Warner Brothers needs to at least, and Disney with the upcoming Phase 4, they need to make a conscious effort to go, okay, because we have to connect with the fans at least some way. Now this is what they have to do. And see, this was part of the problem with Brie Larson, was Now, I'm not on the conservative bandwagon that hates all things Brie Larson. I actually kind of enjoyed Captain Marvel. I thought it was a decent film. I didn't think it was blow me away amazing, but I thought it was good. But anyway, all that to say, Brie Larson basically came out and abused the fans and ridiculed them, made fun of them, and everything in between. And I think if she had just said, hey, give me a chance. I know that I'm kind of young. I'm maybe not the Carol Danvers that you pictured, but I can do it. Trust me. I'm with you. It's like the same. It's like the guy, his name escapes me, but the Hell on Wheels guy who they tapped to play Christopher Pike in Star Trek Discovery Season 2. What did he do? He took Instagram pictures of himself on the bridge, and he said, hey, listen, maybe I'm not the choice you wanted to play Christopher Pike, but hey, look at me. Give me a chance. Trust me. I'll, warp speed ahead. I've got this. And I think that is, and I get it, nerds are not always the greatest fan base. We saw this with the Star Wars prequels. The prequels are incredible, amazing, great films, and the fan base retroactively reacted. When everyone my age grew up, they were like, oh, the original trilogy, people don't like them, so I didn't like them either. So I get it. We can be kind of a fickle bunch. But just remember, we're the ones dragging our friends, our girlfriends, or wives, in my case, a super cute wife, to these films. We're the ones paying your tickets, and paying for your tickets. And so, just to kind of cast this aside, thinking that you can bring in new fans, it's not going to work. It's not going to happen. It just isn't. And now, the name Batman will bring in a good box office turn the first week, maybe even the second week, but it's going to peter out. That's what happened with Captain Marvel. Great first week showing, great second week showing, and then it petered out. Avengers Endgame, on the other hand, kept on going because the Russo brothers knew, and maybe, and I don't know if they respect the fans, but they at least knew who paid their meal ticket. And so all this talk about toxic fans, and that's what I'm transitioning to, it's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of sad. Now, I've never watched a single episode of Game of Thrones, but when Sophie Turner came out and said, it's disrespectful of the writers that there is a change.org petition to remake season 8. Oh, it's just so disrespectful. I'm a feminist and I hate fainting couches, but I think I need one. Obviously, who is she to say she's disrespectful? We're just being disrespectful. You made a product, and if the customers don't like your product, tough cookies. This is a thing that I think even conservative reviewers and critics and cinephiles don't understand is the entertainment industry is making a product. Sure, it's art, but it's entertainment art. And conservatives are caught up in this golden age of Hollywood that never really happened. It happened in the movies. We see it in La La Land and in Singing in the Rain and even in White Christmas and other films. Hollywood is so great. It's the land of stars and dreams, but it's really not. And so for these elitists to come out and say, you're disrespecting the writers. Yeah, try that with Heroes, right? Heroes slapped the fans in the face and the fans turned away from it. It got a show that should still be on today, got canceled after 4 seasons. And now I'm not saying that they can't defend their art. So Sophie Turner has every right to defend Game of Thrones, but to call the fans disrespectful for not liking the product that they produced, I think that is kind of ridiculous. I think that's kind of sad. And, and the actress who played Rose in The Last Jedi, who was a terrible actress, by the way, she deletes her Instagram because people were criticizing her. Oh, my feelings are hurt. You're a celebrity. If you didn't want to be in the public spotlight, don't be in the public spotlight. And that's kind of the issue. Now, you're entitled to have your private moments at home with your family and so on and so forth. But you are not entitled to not take criticism. And these actors need to get over it. And if Robert Pattinson is actually a choice, if Warner Brothers does close this deal with him, then he's going to have to be ready for the heat. He is going to have to bring it on. He is going to have to put on his best game face. Now, again, I'm not on the side that says Robert Pattinson shouldn't be Batman. I'm not saying he can't be Batman, but he has to be ready, because if he does not pay it off, and if Matt Reeves does not direct him well, you can't be mad at the fans. You're just going to have to suck it up and deal with it. And Warner Brothers and Disney, you better start listening. You better start paying attention. Comic books have a very loyal fan base, but you are losing them to indie creators who are scooping up all the writers and artists that you fired, that you mistreated, that you blacklisted, and they're making all of your money. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Yeah, that's all the time I have for today. Thank you so much for watching Studio Jake. I just want to remind you to subscribe, ring the bell, like this video, share it out, and let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think Robert Pattinson is going to be a good Batman? Do you think that Matt Reeves can direct him well? Do you think that this was kind of a slap in the face to the fans? What do you think? Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter at RealJacobAiry. Instagram is the same, at RealJacobAiry. Facebook is Author Jacob Airy, where you can also find some of my political writings and stuff and be up to date on everything that's going on. Head over to my blog. It's very simple, jacobairy.blog, JACOBAIRY.blog, for my movie reviews, for industry news, pretty much everything in between. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time right here on Studio Jake.